They're what I want to talk with you about today. A simple question. 24 years of coaching chiropractors. Buddy, what does it take to grow a practice?
We have to be extremely clear about who we are, what we do, why we do what we do, why we don't do other things, etc. So that's in between the ears. It's the certainty in the headspace. Who it is that, who are we? What do we do? How do I go ahead and communicate that? How do I go ahead and market that? How do I put the procedures and the systems in place that will cause that to happen? So if you're a chiropractor and you want to help do more than just help people feel better, how are we going to accomplish that? So I start with the umbrella. Here's an umbrella. And for me, my umbrella is this. I help people get healthy, stay healthy, and have the best life possible. That's what I do. Now I ask everyone that I coach to come up with your own umbrella.
Russ Rosen, welcome to the Marketing Your Practice podcast. How are you, my friend?
Mate, if I'm with you, I am happy. That's a fact.
The same can be said for me too. So, I love you as much as I love anybody in this world. I really mean that to you, not only as a friend, but as a mentor. And so I'm damn excited to be sitting here chatting with you as well. You have been a previous guest with me at least a couple of times there too. Today, we're going to be talking about practice growth. I want to bring some context to that in a couple of moments there too. But for our friends that don't know the man, the myth, the legend, Russ Rosen, let's take a couple of moments, give him a thumbnail of your journey to what brings you to the conversation that we're about to have today.
That's me doing that, not you doing that?
I'm going to let you do it. Okay,
right.
So You do it, go.
Yeah. Look, long and the short of it, when I was 8 years old, I had an injury, and that injury led me to a chiropractor who saved my life. And I said, at 8 years old, like, even if I don't grow up, I'm going to be a chiropractor, right?
Yeah.
And then, went to chiropractic school, had a wonderful experience there, moved over to Maui after a couple of months in practice, and opened a wonderful practice there for around 14 years. I had one of the largest practices in Hawaii for many years. I had the largest network practice, me and a couple of people in the world for 7 years. And then I started coaching, and I absolutely love what I do. It's an interesting thing because for 24 years, I do 3 weeks on, 1 week off. And if I have a 5-week month where I do 3 weeks, I get 2 weeks off. And by the end of the 2 weeks, I can't wait to get back to coaching. I just absolutely love helping people get it and thrive and go out and just succeed. I did a seminar once. We spent hours and hours and hours writing out who we are and what we do and what our impact is. And then at the end, it was the tombstone exercise, which I know you're aware of. And the tombstone exercise is, what would you like to be on your tombstone? What would you like people to see and go, that describes him? And mine is small pebble, huge ripple. And when I am able to help chiropractors thrive, I get a huge ripple because of the impact that I have on all the people that they're able to help, the lives they're able to save and change. So, I've been coaching now for 24 years. And I'm starting to get it pretty figured out.
You talk about that ripple. When anyone's asking me about my journey, I can't share that without mentioning you. When we first started working together a number of years ago, by many standards, I had a very successful practice. I was seeing 400 peeps a week. I was working 3 days. I was making a bunch of cash. But I had built somebody else's practice. I built the practice that the coaches I'd worked with prior in their systems and their communication, and it was lacking authenticity. It was missing me. And so whilst it was thriving in some areas, it wasn't thriving where it was important to me. And we worked over a number of years, and you helped me to unpack what was important to me and to add that element into it. And it was beautiful. And your manner and the way that you do that is such a great question asker. And the ability that you have to patch the problem when it needs to be patched really quickly, identify why the problem happened in the first place, and here's how we don't cause the same problem in the future, is unparalleled. And I have worked with lots of people and I've seen lots of coaches, throughout the years. I'm interested because you talk about 24 years in and you feel like you're starting to get there. What I want to talk with you about today, a simple question. 24 years of coaching chiropractors. Buddy, what does it take to grow a practice?
Well, there's on one level, there's a whole lot to that. And on another level, it's really simple. And you
Mm,
just touched on that. So there's really a couple of pieces of the puzzle. From a 3,000 meter view or a 10,000 foot view, step one is to get extremely clear about who you are, what you do, why you do what you do, why you don't do other things. Like it's really important to unravel the untruths, the things that you've been told and the goals that you're shooting for that aren't really you. They're not your authentic self. And certainly you and I worked on that, and I work mostly with everybody on that because we have a lot of unraveling to do to get down to what is our true truth. And that changes in the ages and stages. I have a lot of docs, you know, like you right now, around your age or a little bit more that are starting to move into, you know, practice, retirement in practice. I've done this, I've done that. I want to retire in practice. So the ages and stages, we have to be extremely clear about who we are, what we do, why we do what we do, why we don't do other things, etc. So that's in between the ears. It's the certainty in the headspace. And there's a quagmire of issues here, of neuroemotional complexes, you know, of thermostat issues, et cetera, that you and I have talked a lot about over the years, and we can dive into if we like. And then once we're clear about, who it is, who are we? What do we do? How do I go ahead and communicate that? How do I go ahead
mm,
and market that? How do I put the procedures and the systems in place that will cause that to happen? One of the things that I do when I start with people is I just say, let's start and look at where you're at now. Where are you at now? Okay. So without judgment or being negative or snarky, just get this. Where you're at now, you caused it. If you don't like where you're at, that's the bad news. The good news is you caused it. So we can do something about it. Right. But anyway,
mm.
about it, like if you want to know how you feel about money, really look at your bank account. Like you don't know how you feel about love and relationships, look at your relationships. I'm not saying educated minds saying, I want this and blah, blah, blah. I'm saying on a subconscious level, the thing that runs the show, right? That's the truth. So now we can look at where you're at and what are we going to do to fix it? So when I'm working with doctors, I look at a ladder. So there's headspace and procedure, headspace and procedure. If the procedure gets too far ahead of the headspace, I went in and I did a screening and I brought in 50 new patients, but I don't have the system or the headspace that will allow me to do that. I'm going to crash. If my
Yeah.
headspace gets too far in front of my procedure, right? Just for fun. I know I'm going off on this, but yesterday I was working with a guy that I coach. He's got a very successful practice, blah, blah, blah. Every time he gets to a certain level, he crashes. And he's been doing this for 15 years. Yeah. And we just started working together and we just kind of got clarity around this. And as we started to discuss it, I asked him, headspace procedures is the reason why you crash because you get to that level and you're stressed, you're wiped out, you don't have space. And he goes, I could double that. And I go, what about your staff? Is your staff wiped out? No, not at all. Like I'm standing around half the time and he's seeing good numbers, right?
Mm.
But but he goes, I that's not the issue. Okay, then it's probably a headspace issue. So we just very quickly checked in and did some NET around it. And we quickly went right back to when he was 7 years old. No, when he was 17 and he was on a basketball team. And
Hmm.
it was with a friend and blah, blah, blah. And it really came to, you think you're better than everyone else, right? And he goes, and I was. I was the best on the team, right? He goes, but you think
Yeah.
you're better than everybody else. And it was this emotional trauma. Then we went to 7 when they moved, and they all new friends, and they were the rich people in town with a bunch of farmers and blah, blah, blah. And it came again with, you're the rich guy, you think you're better than everybody else, blah, blah, blah. And then he went, oh man, every time I get to this level, it's where this other guy in town is at that level. And I don't think very highly of him. I
Yeah.
don't
Got
think I don't
it.
think he's a good person. I don't think that he represents our profession very well. And he goes, and I don't want to be like that. So it was like he goes, got it. Like every time I get to that level, my whisper in my upper thermostat, which we can dive into more if you want or not, but that says, oh, you don't want to be like that. You don't want to be seen like that. And then he crashes the practice. So we just cleared that out with using NET, Scott Walker's work, and we'll see what happens next week. I'm willing to bet that he'll have a lot of people come out of the woodwork and the practice will really start to grow till we need
Mm.
to bump our head against the next one. So it's headspace and it's procedures, and the procedures are all of the systems that help us run the type of practice that we want to run. So far, so good on that.
Yeah. Can we dive a little into this foundational kind of questions of who are you, what do you do, and why do you do what you do? And why do you not do what you don't do as well? How do some people answer those questions? I know there's a range of people that you work with, and the answer to that question of who are you and what do you do is going to be different. But if we've got some listeners here that are like, I don't even know how to start to answer those questions, what does that look like?
Yeah, so let's just play for a moment. And you've given this a lot of thought, but let's just you and I play for a moment.
Right.
And I'm going to ask you listeners to put yourself in Angus's role. And I'm asking you, the listener, I'm asking you the exact same question. And I want you to write it down, or I want you to think it through. So, Angus, when you were in practice, who are you as a chiropractor? What's your goal? What are you trying to accomplish?
Um, you know, I guess I wanted to help people. There's several things. I wanted to help them get healthier. I wanted to empower them to understand where health came from. So it was a combination of education. I wanted to be an educator, a teacher. And then, for lack of a better word, I was a practitioner as a therapist, and that word's not right, but I was delivering a service provider as well in terms of my hands-on work.
That's right. So when I
Mm.
ask people this question, so much of it is what their guru told them, what their philosophy instructor told them, what their technique guru told them, blah blah blah. And there's their pat answer that comes out to me. I fix people, I fix necks, I help headaches. And then I want to dig deeper with them. Now you've given this a lot of thought. So mostly when I start with people, it's well, I help people feel better. And I go,
Mm.
okay, far out. That's great. Anything else? Is your goal to do any more than that, other than to help them feel better? And they kind of look at me with a quizzical look, and I'll use this, which we use in my coaching clients. Negative path to optimal health. Oops. -10 is near death. So you're in hospice care. Most of our patients aren't there. Every once in a while, but mostly not. 0, we feel comfortable. We feel good. We're not functioning at our optimum. The test we just did will not be clear, but you feel good. And then there's you, as healthy as you can be, and you're functioning at your optimum. You're doing really, really well. So what do you want to do with people? Do you just want to help them feel better? Do you want to help them resolve issues? Do you want to help them get healthy and stay healthy? Like if you had a choice in the matter and I had a magic wand and you had a magic wand and you were working with people, where would you like to help people, Angus?
Yeah, my vision in practice was absolutely to get them as close to that level 10 as possible.
Great. So now we got to start to look at, okay, let's look at the umbrella of how would I do that? Because look,
Yes.
everyone that works with me, they've already been through my funnel of things, and they're coming to see me because they like this concept. I just
Mm,
talked to a guy today, earlier today, and he said, he goes, I know that I'm going to be like everyone else you ever talk to, but I'm gushing all over you like I've been doing this 20 years, and everything I'm hearing, I'm going, that's what I've always wanted. All right, well, those are the
yeah.
people I work with. So, I'm
Yeah.
not working with the people who just want to help people feel better. Seinfeld episode, not that there's anything wrong with that, right? I see a chiropractor, I see three that helps me just feel better, but that's not who I work with. So if you're a
Yes.
chiropractor and you want to help do more than just help people feel better, how are we going to accomplish that? So I start with the umbrella. Here's an umbrella. And for me, my umbrella is this. I help people get healthy, stay healthy, and have the best life possible. That's what I do. Now, I ask everyone that I coach to come up with your own umbrella.
Mm,
Okay. But for this discussion here, that can pretty much work for you. Get healthy, stay healthy, have the best life possible.
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So that, we had our version of that. And I don't think I had an umbrella statement per se, but I certainly knew what that looked like inside. And a lot of the journey kind of comes into this next question of, what am I prepared to? Because the common challenge with that is, well, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a nutrition coach, I'm not an exercise physiologist. And often that's kind of thrown up as a barrier there as well. It's like, I'm not any of those things either, nor do I desire to be.
Let's dive in right now. So here's the
Yeah.
umbrella. Now, what role do I play to help them get healthy and stay healthy and have the best life possible? What are the things I do? And a caveat for that, because you kind of jump to the end where I normally deal with that is, and we're allowed to refer out. We're allowed to be
100%.
a part of the team, of the person's health team. I don't have to be everything to everyone every time. At the beginning, when I was in practice, I did. I did the nutrition, I did the diet, I did the
Mm,
physical, I did the neuroemotional, I did, and then I started recognizing, wow, what about yoga? And what about meditation?
mm,
And I was like, I can't be everything to everybody. So now
mm.
I would ask you personally, whoever's listening right now, to start to bullet out the things that you do, your part of the role. So, what are some things that you do to help people get healthy and stay healthy and have the best life possible? Do you adjust them?
100%. And
Why?
well, I realized that there was a unique skill set in terms of professionally. That's what I could deliver that many of the other professions couldn't. I understood, you know, from a paradigm that the role that the nervous system plays. So first of all, the nervous system is the master system. It controls and oversees, the body's ability to heal and repair. It's not
Everything.
the only important system. It's very hard to be healthy if you've got a shitty heart. It's very hard to be healthy if your kidneys don't work. But the coordinating role of the nervous system there too, the relationship between that and the spine and subluxation there too, is that what I wanted to do was I wanted to remove interference so the body had the best ability to kind of heal itself there too. But I understood the impact of how we eat, move, think, rest as well. And originally, the dilemma with me was, what I realized is that and you helped me with this, is that rather than me telling people what to do, is I became a really good question asker. So, do you think what you're eating might be having a role in your headaches? Yeah, I do, Angus. So tell me more about that. And I would go, well, if you were to improve your eating, what do you think that you could do? And they would give me some advice, some recommendations. which more times than not were great recommendations. It's like I could eat a bit more of this and eat a bit more less of that. I go, great. Like if we were to do that over the next 2 weeks, what would that look like? They would write out their own plan and I would support them in it. I developed a bunch of resources from books to other practitioners to videos to that type of stuff there too. And rather than having to be the delivery mechanism of these things, what I was is I was a referral source for all these things. Watch this, read this, see that person, depending on where they were at. And all this started off by just being a good question asker as well. And finally, I built those resources. It took me a couple of years to build them and to get some confidence in around the conversation as well, where I could check their spine, correct their subluxations, have these conversations with them, direct them to where it would go, and not have to be responsible for all of those, their outcomes in that, but could be just part of the conversation. And so that's what kind of helped me in terms of here's where I sat as well. And you know, because like you, I started off doing exercise. I'm like, fuck, I'm not going to write. You know, this is not me. This is not my zone of genius and expertise is doing this stuff there too. But you know, for some peeps, it might be too.
That's right. So you say the zone of genius. So once we begin to have this conversation, I then talk with doctors. Well, what's your zone of genius? What are you great at? What's the thing that nobody else on the planet is as good as you? Now, I have doctors that go, I do this style of adjusting. I do blood work. I can read blood work like no one on the planet. I can tell them very specific diet and nutritional supplements that they should be doing. I have doctors, you know, that do spit, pee, and poop tests. I have doctors that do neuroemotional work, that do quantum neurologic reset technique, that use shockwave, that use PEMF, that you like. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care what you use. I care that you recognize why you're doing these things and that they're in your zone of genius. You're not doing it because I can make money on it. And clearly a side effect is that you're making money, but you should only be doing the things that you love to do, that you know are in your zone of genius, and that you can look at the umbrella and say, I help people get healthy, stay healthy, and have the best life possible. How do you do it? I do this style of adjusting, and here's what we accomplish. I do this with lifestyle advice, and here's why. I do this, and here's why. I do this, and here's why. And one of them is I refer out when appropriate, because I can't be everything to everybody all the time. So I coach doctors at just adjust, and I coach doctors at just adjust and give lifestyle advice and do nutrition and do blood work and do neuroemotional work. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to make sure you're clear about why I do what I do and why I'm not doing other things. I'm not like so many chiropractors are like, well, I'm not going to do that. That's not chiropractic. Okay, I get it. But if they're banging their head against the wall and they keep getting headaches and they're banging their head against the wall and they keep getting there, shouldn't you at least point out, quit banging your head against the wall? Well, that's not chiropractic. Knock it off. Knock it off.
And, you know, we get these silly answers where people will say things like, well, you know, they could slip on a banana in the street. What am I going to go along and pick up every banana that's on the street? I'm like, come on.
But you are going to point out, try not to slip and fall. Like these are the things that can cause subluxations. So
yes,
that's what I'm talking about, mate. I mean, get clear about who you are, what you do, why you don't do other things. Now you have a nugget. Now I got an acorn I can plant.
Yeah.
This is who I am.
Well, I think, you know, so much of this is about having a conscious practice and living a conscious life. You know, I remember the story of a family who, whenever they would cook a big leg of lamb, what they would do is they would cut the lamb in half and they would kind of spread it open and then they would put it in the oven and cook it like that too. And one of the daughters said to her mum as she was kind of teaching, she goes, Mum, why do we cut the leg of lamb like this in half? Mum says, well, I don't really know. That's the way my mum did. I'll ask her. She asked her mum. She said, well, that's the way my mum did it. Let me find out. And it happened that the fourth generation was still alive. So she rang up her mum and she said, Mum, why do we cut the lamb in half and kind of spread it like that? And the mum said, well, I had a really small oven and that's the only way that the lamb would fit in there. And we carry these things on in practice as well. Like we've got a big oven now. We don't need to do that with the lamb. It's not an important part of the process there too. And as I mentioned beforehand, I built a practice to begin with that wasn't really my practice. It was a practice from people who had mentored me, coaching programs I'd been a part of as well. And I didn't, why am I doing this? Well, because somebody told me to do it. And that can be a reason, but it's not often the best reason to start with. And so taking some time to consciously look at who are you? Why do you do what you do? And see, there's a lot of really, including this conversation now, there's a lot of time that really charismatic chiropractors will stand up on a stage and tell you that you should be doing things this way. And I really believe that might be great for them, but it doesn't have to be great for us. And if we can put in this work of having a conscious practice that's authentic and that's without contradiction, it becomes magnetic also.
All right, so you just said it. It's the contradiction. So now I'm clear about who I am. Let's look at our procedures.
Mm.
Uh-oh. So I want to empower people and I want to educate them. But you look at your procedures and you're not educating them. Or if you are educating them, they're not getting it because you're lecturing them. You don't know how to communicate from the neuroscience of communications. Or I don't think that I don't think that I should use physical therapy things, but I'm using this because it makes money. Contradictions lead to destruction, right? So, or I really do think I love shockwave and I want to use it in my practice because when I use it, my adjustments do so much better, blah, blah, blah. But I'm a chiropractor and we shouldn't do that. Like all these contradictions. So once you're clear about who you are and what you do, and you have that acorn, now you plant it and you look at your procedures. And so many of our procedures are because of what you just said. Someone told me to do it. But when I examine that, it's not me. It's not me. It doesn't feel right. I have this, almost every person that comes to work with me says, I have these processes and they don't feel like me. They don't feel right. And I just say, then even if we get you money, you'll never be happy. When I start working with people, I say, if all I do is get your practice successful, but you don't have a wonderful life, I failed you. Right? So we've got to clean this stuff up so it's you and you're getting the message and you're practicing the way you want to practice. I have a lot of docs that I work with that are like high volume and they hate their practice. They don't know the person's name. They don't, and I want to spend this much time with the people. I have other ones that come with, God, I spend all this time per person. I'd love to be able to spend less time and get better results. I don't care what you want. I'll help you get there, but I want to make sure it's what you want. And once we know what that is, we come up with congruent strategies to get there.
So much of it, it's very hard to, I kind of think about these concepts of authenticity and identity kind of lined up inside of there too, and sort of chiseling that away. What are some of the biggest barriers that get in the way of chiropractors really kind of finding their authentic self? You kind of things in there. I mean, we've talked about, like, for instance, I want to have shockwave or laser in the practice here, but that's not chiropractic. What are some of the other things that get in the way of somebody finding their authentic self and really clarifying who they are and what they want to do?
It's two different things. One is that they haven't taken the time to actually think it through. And the other one is what got them in the first place is just simply taking things at face value and accepting it.
Yeah.
I heard my instructor say this, and therefore that's the right thing to do. I deal with this every day where people will say that. This is what I do. And I'll go, great, let's shine a light on that. And when we do that, they're like, oh my God, that's not me at all. That there's patient scare on that. I get I'm manipulating people, I'm scaring people. I don't want to do that. But that's what they were taught. So it's that we haven't taken the time to really examine who am I? What do I do? Why do I do what I do? Why don't I do other things? And once I look at what I'm doing, is that going to lead to what I actually want? And again, we go back to look at where you're at. If you don't like where you're at, you caused it. If you don't like that, then let's go back to, are you authentic? Are you trying to accomplish what you really want to accomplish? Number one, the answer almost always is no. And I mean, 1 out of 1,000 is yes. And then we look at the procedures. We look at the strategies. How do I market? How do I communicate? How do I schedule? All of that kind of stuff. And there are contradictions. And when we clean up those contradictions, magic happens. It's the difference between a white belt hitting a brick and a black belt. White belt breaks her hand, black belt breaks a brick, and they look the same until they hit. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's not taking the time to think this stuff through. And then once I have thought it through, I have no idea how to get there. Classic one, by the way, and I'll shut up for a sec, but classic one is, I don't want to use scare tactics, but they've sure worked for me. And when I don't use scare tactics, people don't sign up for care. Well,
yes,
that's because you don't know how to get people to sign up for care by empowering them. Like you do, I know you do. But a lot of people don't know how to do it, so that they go, well, if I don't scare people, no one signs up for care. I hate it, but I'm going to continue to do it because that's all that works. That's not all that works. It's all you know.
Yeah, that's the problem. So first of all, as I think about this, we need to clarify what is it that we want. And it's often what we clarify is, I want a practice of this volume, these hours, and this revenue. But we miss out that I want that, and I also want to enjoy work, and I want a life that works as well. Because scare tactics work, manipulation works. Many of these things work if our goal is, well, they certainly work in the short term, if our goal is to, build that volume there too. But this is where, I hadn't, in those early days, those what my goals were. They were based in around those things. And I got there and something was missing. I'm like, this is not authentically me. This is not the heart-centered practice that I want. And so therefore I had to kind of rebuild it. Now, did it mean that I saw a few less people? Yes, it did. Did I almost double my fees? Yes, I did. So, I ended up seeing a few less people, making a bunch more money, working even less hours. So like it was a win-win-win across the board there for me.
And more joyous and more happy.
Significantly more across the board there too. But, as well as kind of clarifying where you are right now, the other thing to do there is to really kind of clarify, where do I want to go? Like what is it that I want from practice?
And why?
Yes.
Where do I want to go and why? So when docs tell me they want to get here, I don't just leave it at that. I really dig in on and why, right? So you just mentioned scare tactics work. We need to clarify what works mean. You can certainly build this up. It's going to crash your referrals. I have people coming to me all the time going, dude, I can't buy a referral, right? So you really got to clarify what works, right?
Yeah.
My worst day in practice, I saw 179 people. And I literally, and this was doing network, where most people were seeing about 20 a day. And I was seeing about 120. And on my birthday, my CA, who I didn't recognize, called everyone I ever knew and said, come in. And we're trying to break 200 because that was my goal, was to break 200. And I felt that if you weren't seeing at least 200 a day, you weren't a real chiropractor. And at the end of that day, there was 179 people I saw. I had, if you ever seen in Hawaii, I have lays, like I could hardly even see it, lays up to here. And it was the worst day I ever had because I recognized I'll never be a real chiropractor. I thought I was going to die. Like I just couldn't do it in that model. I just couldn't see that many people. And I felt like such a failure, right? So why do I want to do it? And when people are telling me their volume they want to see, I want to know why. And are you able to accomplish the things you want to accomplish with these people, right? So where am I now? Where do I want to get to? And why is really important. Yes?
Oh, 100%. Like the most important.
And now that we're in agreement. So by now we go, all right, well, it's pretty clear why we're not there. Because when we got clear about who we really are, we see that things we're doing don't support that at all. So they go, okay, I'm good. It makes sense to me now why I'm not there. So now we just
Mhm.
go, well, let's come up with some congruent strategies that support your vision, who you truly are, your authentic self. And then I ask, I go, okay, so cool. These are the strategies I would recommend to get there. Does that make sense to you? And they go, yeah. And I go, does that feel like you? And they go, yeah. Or not this piece. And I go, all right, let's clean that up. Let's make it like you. Until we agree, these strategies will take you from where you're at to where you want to be and get you what you want. Once we agree on that, we simply take these and install them, integrate them, and then we course correct. We watch and we see, does it? And like 99% of the time it does, because I've done this so many times with so many offices. I know what'll work. I just got to know what you want.
Mhm. Yeah. You know, really interesting things because I think something magical happens when you clarify where you are right now and you get crystal clear about where you want to go. And if I ask people this, there's a gap between those. And that gap kind of, there are two pathways that people can take with that gap that get them there. And sometimes it's an information gap. It's like, okay, I lack the information, the procedures, the policies to be able to get me there. And I want to find a new way to communicate. I want to find a new way to do a report, to find this initial consultation there too. But often, once somebody gets clarity in around where they are, where they want to go, all it is an implementation gap. Like this clarity just comes about that says, got it. I'm here right now. I want to get to there. Let me go. I've got to start to, just put the things in place. It amazes me how often we know the steps once we clarify, where we are and where we want to go as well. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. And then that bangs us up. And I know I sound like a broken record, but I always go back to, I don't think I've ever done a coaching session with anyone where I didn't at least look at headspace and procedure, because
Mm,
it's heads and tails. Everything. Here's an example. 10 doctors will ask me how to get referrals. And I'll say, I want you to go do these three things with 10 people. Okay. Five come back and they got referrals. Five come back and they didn't. What's the difference? Well, these people learned the procedure I told them to do and had no headspace issues around it. These people did. These people subconsciously or
mhm.
consciously felt, I'm a doctor, I shouldn't have to ask for referrals,
Yeah.
or whatever their thermostat was. So when I get clear like this, now I can implement that
Mm,
if I don't have a subconscious thing that's going to keep me from getting it. Let me just touch on that for a moment. You and I have spent a lot of time talking about this over the years. We've got
mm.
in the style of work called oh god, I'm forgetting the style of work, but it is the book The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And I studied
Yes.
with a guy named Eric Sigmund, who you also know, and
Transactional analysis.
transaction analysis. Thank you.
Mm,
What we get clear about is that in every area of our life, there's a thermostat in our brain. And a thermostat works like this, and I'm going to use Fahrenheit. It's cold where I am now. God, I wish I was in Maui. Um, and if I want it to be 68 degrees. Okay, so I set it for 68. At 66, it'll click on and it'll heat up. And at 70, it'll let go or turn off, and then it'll cool back down. But it's going to keep me in a range. If you look at, this is how much love I want. This is how many new patients I want. This is the level of retention I want. This is how much intimacy I want. If you look at every area of your life, and there's studies on this, you stay within a very narrow range. And if
mhm,
you take somebody out of that comfort zone, now for somebody, that comfort zone might be living under a bridge, and you
mhm,
put them for free in a hotel, they will sabotage and get kicked out,
mhm.
right? there are people that I would feel very uncomfortable if I didn't have $100,000 in the bank. Gets below 100, they'll pull their head out of the butt. They'll get some money in the bank. But at $150,000, I don't feel comfortable. It's out of my comfort. It's not conscious. They're telling you they
Mm,
want $20 million consciously, but subconsciously at $150,000, they sabotage themselves and they blow it. Now, for all of us, it's very easy to see that in people we know. Everyone I ask this question, I go, do you know anyone? Oh man, they start telling me, my sister-in-law, and she screws it up
mm,
every time and blah, blah, blah. And then I go, what about you? And it's like, I don't have anything like that. We all have it. We all have it in every area of our lives. And so
mm,
if we just cleared up a headspace issue, it might raise the thermostat. If we just cleared up a procedural issue, it might raise the thermostat. But if it didn't raise the thermostat, we're going to sabotage. And this is how easy it is to sabotage. I'll use the
mm.
example of the guy that I was coaching yesterday. His practice gets up to that certain level, and his subconscious whispers this: they're going to think you're a wanker. They're going to think that was for you. They're going to think that you're a schmuck. They're going to think that you are ripping people off. They're going to think you don't care about people. They're going to think you're a phony. You come off like this spiritual guy, like you really care about people and you love people, and they're going to see through that you don't. Any of those as a
Mm,
whisper, like
mm.
to him, those were the issues, like
Yeah,
because he
totally.
really cares about people, he loves people, spiritual practice and blah blah blah. And for people to think that about him would crush him, right? That's all it takes. And then subconsciously, I will do one of a myriad of things to drop my practice back down. Emotionally, physically, I'll get tired, I'll get sick, I'll stop doing my visit 1 and 2 the way I do it, blah blah blah. But it's all a thermostat. So when you look at, this is where I want to get to. I'm sorry, this is where I am, this is where I want to get to. If it raised the thermostat, it'll happen to the next level. And the thing we need to do is just keep acknowledging, recognizing, and raising. When you get that you have this, and all you have to do, like, how do you know you have it? Look at your life. You want to know how you
Mm,
feel about money? Look at your bank account. You want to know how you feel about number of new patients? Look at your new patients. For those of you who are listening, unless you have just done like a big marketing event, I'll bet you if you look at your number of new patients month in and month out, they're in a very narrow range. Gets too low, you do something about it. Gets too high, you sabotage it. And it's going to be a
yeah.
headspace or a procedural issue, and more often than not, both. Yes?
Yeah. Buddy, it's so powerful, and it's interesting how that thermostat, as you were going through that, and I'm thinking about my business now, it's like, like it still exists. It's not that you kind of get the thermostat issue sorted and that's not a problem for you. Is that thermostat just continues to go and we hit new ceilings. I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like that I have been, the number of clients that we have inside of community influence. Like, isn't that interesting that that has stayed there? And the growth tends to be not linear. It's step up, up, up. Yes, totally.
That's right.
You know,
And
we
just to be
clear that
clear,
out.
everybody has it. Bill Gates
Yes.
has it, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of him, but I'm a fan of his money. I
Yes.
mean, it doesn't matter where you're at on the scale. We all have it. And when you acknowledge that, because again, for all of us, everyone I talk to about this goes, she's got that problem. But no one ever
Yes.
thinks they do. We all do. And once you get that, life gets so much easier. And I promise you, it's going to be one or two things. It's going to be
Mm.
headspace, or it's going to be procedure, and most likely it's going to be both. The
Yeah.
trick is to figure those out. That's what I do for a living, right? I meet with
Yeah.
people and I help figure where those are, and then we go and we just keep doing that until they go, that's it. That's as far as I want to go.
Mm. Let's talk a little bit about that. If people are interested in kind of expanding beyond this conversation that we've had today, there's a number of ways that they can work with you, resources they can access. Can we talk a little through some of their options?
Yes. Yeah. Step one is I have a free Facebook community where 3 weeks a month, twice a week, I am downloading content. In there right now, there is a tremendous amount of content. If you go to the guides section, and in Angus will have the link for you, guide section, go to master classes, go to how to build your practice, go to Headspace. I got tons of great stuff in there. So I do a live recording once a week, and I post something of great value once a week. I also have when people, my funnel, right? So you guys study marketing. My funnel is you get in there and hopefully you go, dang it, that's good stuff. I like this guy. I'd like more. So then you can go into our club, and our club is a paid club at the moment. It's $57 a month, kind of introductory because I just got it going about 4 months ago. And we meet in there, and I'm not just posting information, but we get in Zoom like this and we talk it down. So if we were talking about certainty, I would have done exactly what I did with Angus with everybody in the group. And I would have
Mm.
asked you questions and I wouldn't have let you off the hook. Right. So we spent an entire hour, and that's 57 a month, 3 times a week. It's killer.
Yeah.
Like
Wild
it's
value.
ridiculous. From there, we've got my learning center, my coaching programs, and my one-on-one. I would say I really believe this in my heart, and I get that I could be wrong. But from what I hear from all the people that I coach, when it comes to one-on-one coaching, I can help people in ways that most people can't. I almost always have people say, I'm really reticent. I've done it before. It's not worked for me. Square peg, round hole. And when they start to work with me, they're like, oh my God, because
Mm.
we're looking at your truth, your headspace, your procedures. And I hold you by the hand and hold you capable and hold you accountable until we get you where you want to get to. It's never square peg, round hole, period. So I rarely have openings for my coaching spots, but every once in a while I do. So, but that's my favorite thing in the world to do is like what you're doing with me right now, one on one. I
Mm.
love that because I can
Mm.
dive deep, I can find your issue and clear it up. And if we get the right thing, nothing's ever the same. So I'll give you the two links. And in the club, if you want to jump into the club, I gave Angus a link for a free month. And then if you dig it and you want to spend 57 a month to continue to get the great info far out, and if not, just and you're out and go back to the free community or never check me out again. Whatever works.
I I would encourage our listeners if there's if there's a rumble in your belly, if some of today has been valuable for you, then working with Russ one-on-one is like what we've done today on steroids as well. At the very least, check out the free stuff. But you don't need to kind of cycle your way through that. If there's a calling for you, then have a chat with Russ. He'll let you know, first of all, there's a spot available and if he can help you as well. Buddy, I love you deeply. I'm always amazed of your ability to be able to take the complex and simplify it. I love hearing of your stories. I appreciate everything that you do. Thanks for sharing so generously with us today.
You bet, buddy. I want to leave with this. You had said this. You know that you are one of my dearest friends. I love you dearly. I got a hold of you that time when we were doing that event with Bruce. I have my three best
Yeah.
friends. I know you can't make it, but I want you to know where you sit in my world, right?
Mm.
For those of you who are listening, he's talked about how I've mentored him. This guy has mentored me over and over and over again. It is one of these amazing, wonderful relationships where not only are we good friends, but I know I'm able to help pull you up sometimes, and then you're able to help pull me up sometimes, and
Mm.
you're able to teach me, and you're able to do so many wonderful things for me. So I really appreciate you and your ability. You're always learning. You're just one of these dudes that are always learning. And the last thing I would leave it at with this It takes us back to in my Ohana. You were staying in
Hmm.
the and we were doing the wellness practice blueprint. And I've always prided myself on I am not the smartest guy in the world. That's a fact. But I can pretty much outwork anyone. Pretty much. I was valedictorian and I'm an average intelligence character, but I'll outwork anyone. And you are one of the first guys ever who outworked me. Like we were doing like 7 a.m. to like 9 p.m. and we'd go to bed and then I'd get up and you'd already have done 2 hours of work on our project, right? And when you work with Angus, when you're in his program, you get the benefit of that. You get the benefit of this super bright guy who's always learning, who can outwork the rest of us mere mortals. And then he takes it and integrates it and makes it so simple for us, right? Because I'm a not just the part of the hair club, like, right? Like this dude can do that for you. So those of you who may listen to this and are thinking of working in Angus's program, you know, just do it. He's the guy.
Yeah, well, thank you, buddy. We've finished off with a lovely little, as our good friend Martin Harvey would talk about, as a circle jerk, where, you know, thank you for your kind words. Thank you for sharing today. I do love you lots. I want to encourage our peeps, if you're called to kind of check out Russ's stuff as well, buddy. And can't wait to chat with you again real soon.
Always love you, mate.
Talk soon. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out my Community Influencer program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work with you to help you apply it, implement it, and systemize it. The Community Influencer Group Coaching program is designed to help you increase your practice income, impact, and enjoyment. Join me over at anguspyke.com/join. That's anguspyke.com/join. I'd love to see you there.